Okay, wonderful. Welcome to everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the 15th Ohioana Book Festival. My name is Gillian Berchowitz, and I'd like to introduce you to our panelists, where we have a spotlight on a particular publishing house, Monday Creek Publishing in Southeastern Ohio. Our panelists are Mark M. Dean, Kathy S. Elasky, J.A. Hall, and Cristina Sicard. I will give, before I go any further, I do want to just give out a special thank you to our partners and to our sponsors. They're very, very special to us, and also to the bookseller, the Book Loft of German Village. All of the books that are featured at the Ohioana Book Festival are available online, and just go to bookloft.com, and now we can get going. So I think you all have copies of your books there, and all of the bios for the authors are available on the book on the website. But just a few things to say. I thought I'd start with you, Mark. So Mark is the author of Fancy Flowers by Faye. He's a VP at Rocky Boots. He's a retired Army Ranger, and this is his third Ohioana Book Festival. The second author I want to mention is J.A. Hall. Let's see your book, Bandit Finds a Home. J.A. has a background in journalism and communication studies, and her book takes place on a rescue farm, and I believe that you actually live on Meadow Farm. Is that correct?
That's where we live, yes.
Great. Kathy S. Elasky. Pudgy is the author of Pudgy Possum and the Porcupine. And Kathy is a retired school teacher. And she also lives on a farm surrounded by pets and critters. Cristina. Hello. Cristina Sicard. This is her second book. It's called Sabana the Sloth. And I see that you're a graduate of Ohio University, also the School of Journalism. Everyone, that's wonderful. So my name is Gillian Berchowitz. I live in Athens, and I'm the retired director of Ohio University Press, where we did publish some children's books and some picture books too. So unfortunately, Gina McKnight, the publisher of Monday Creek, cannot be with us today. Monday Creek does a really wide variety of books, but today we're focusing very specifically on picture books. So my first question, and we'll start with you, Mark. But at trade, the big trade houses in New York, the editor most often selects and hires the illustrator. So tell me about the process at Monday Creek and what you were looking for in an illustrator.
Well, it's been interesting for me. I live here in Southeast Ohio as well, down in Athens. And what I wanted to do was find somebody that was local. So I first contacted Gina a couple of years ago, actually, when we came out with my first book, Cole and Annie's Adventures. And we started to look for various illustrators within the area. And we were very fortunate to find a host of very talented individuals within the Southeast Ohio vicinity. I used a very talented individual named Kelly Lincoln for my first book. And then I was introduced to a young woman who at that point in time was a senior at Athens High School that had just a phenomenal portfolio, very adept at online graphics and very imaginative characterization for her individuals and the animals that she drew. So I chose Emmy. Emmy and I sat down and we chatted, and her work just really spoke to me really well. And then Gina and I sat down and we worked out the mechanics of how that was going to happen. So
Great. Great. So it was a very collaborative process. Kathy, now I believe that
very much so.
Yeah. You illustrated your own book, is that right?
I did.
And go ahead.
When I took the fun, I had made this book for my grandkids, so I had painted pictures for it before. And when I took the final pictures into Gina, she goes, "Oh, these are much better." So some of the pictures I had to redo like 5 or 6 times till I got it the way I wanted it. So, but it was fun. It was a fun challenge.
Yeah, that, I mean, it's great when you are able to do them for your own book. It's just a different process. So do you go by J.A.?
Jill.
This whole?
Jill's fine.
Oh, by Jill. Good. Okay. Hi. I go by Jill too. So tell us about the process by which you found so it's Karine Makartichan, right?
Yes, that's good. Well, I started out actually with a friend of mine who was a tattoo artist, and I thought I wanted to collaborate with her to see if we could come up with something. And she really wasn't comfortable with the whole picture book. So I went to Ohio University and checked with students that were graduating who had a career in design for, artists.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't hook up with someone there. So I had to go on the internet. And I looked for semi-professional illustrators, and I came across Karine, and I loved how she drew my pictures. I gave her my ideas, and she did them just exactly the way I wanted them. So her and I are teaming up on this series for Bandit. And so I worked with Karine, and then I took what Karine had sent to Gina. And then Gina and I sat down and we were trying to match what the text was with the pictures and make sure that it was a good cohesive mix. And so it worked out really well.
Excellent. Cristina.
Yes, Miss Gillian, I must say the fact that you were at OU and that you live in Athens, that's wonderful. Very special place for me. I actually wanted to go see those cherry blossoms, but I don't think I'm going to make it this year. But I see them in
done now.
So that'll do. Yes. So my first book here is about a real llama, Harmony, that I met in Southeast Ohio. Really special because one of my good friends, the illustrator of that book, her name is Katie Draculage, and I went to high school with her. She's the funniest, most talented, such a brilliant person. So I was really lucky that when Katie and I showed up to Gina's beautiful office, that Gina was willing to give us that chance. And so, like I said, Katie's so talented, and I feel really lucky that we got to work on that project. And then the second book, Sabana the Sloth, I got to do with my mom. And so both of them just have the fact that Gina allowed me to find illustrators, people that are important in my life, and then that they could add details in both of these stories is amazing to me. I mean, both stories, there's so much detail to these illustrations, and they're so bright, these colors, even though these topics are a little bit more dense. But yeah, even like Sabana the Sloth, there's an ant on every page. So for kids to be finding that little ant. So the fact that I had a good friend and then my mom, who again are these wonderful people in my life that I could just go to and talk it through. So I really am grateful for Gina giving that local aspect that Mark talked about, but also allowing us to work with special people in our lives.
Yeah, no, that is, it's really nice. Editors are always worried about authors micromanaging, but when in fact the collaboration works, it's very meaningful. So my second question. So my sense is that authors, who choose to write for young children want their books to be simple, but also profound. And so was there an important issue or idea that you wanted to get across in your in your book. And Jill, I thought we'd start with you.
All right, that sounds good. It's important for me that children love to read, and I wanted to make a book about this little puppy, which is Who Keeps Barking. He's over here. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, no, he's well.
Mine's barking too.
Yeah, he's over here. So Bandit was mauled, and that's how I got him. And he went through so much, and he was such a good puppy. And I wanted to bring the love of animals and to children and reading, and I want them to be like the heroes of their own stories. So that was what was important to me to write about a children's book, not so much about how bad animal abuse is or anything like that, not a kind of book, but I wanted to touch children. And so with my book, I'm hoping that we can take children on little adventures on the farm to see how all of it all
Well, I think we're having a little trouble with Jill. So Mark, why don't we move to you? And yours is a focus on flowers and identification, and tell us about what's important for you.
Well, and I don't think I showed my book before.
Oh.
There's Fancy Flowers by Faye. But what was important to me really was the relationship between this young girl and her grandmother, because Faye visits, or this young child visits Faye's flower shop every day. And she gets something out of it. She loves being there. She loves interacting. And as you mentioned, the character goes through the book and identifies different flowers, but without that connection with her grandmother, she wouldn't have that educational opportunity. So to me, it's just really important. I was very fortunate in that regard with my grandparents. So that was something I just wanted to share, and I wanted it to be a book that was fun, vibrant, and gave parents the opportunity to take children through a course that they may not have. I mean, a lot of folks don't get to grow up in Southeast Ohio with the fauna and et cetera that we get to enjoy here. So I just wanted to open that door for them.
No, that's lovely. Welcome back, Jill. Okay. Let's go to you, Kathy.
When I wrote this book, Pudgy's been my friend for 40 some years. I first wrote about him when my kids were little. But when I did this book for my grandkids, I just wanted them to think that it's okay to try big ideas. And if they don't work, that's fine. At least you tried. And in the end, that you're better off just being who you are, not trying to be somebody else.
Okay. Cristina?
Yes, so both of my books, they touch on aspects of my life. So we'll start with Harmony. So when I met Harmony the llama, he's from Somerset, Ohio. That's where he's at with his owner named Donna. I always say it, but she's the most charismatic person I've ever met. And I've always wanted to write children's books. So when I met her that day, her and Harmony, I said, that's it. And I pulled her aside. Katie and I, my illustrator, we took a Polaroid. I said, Donna, it's happening. And so with Harmony, when I looked at him, I thought, what is a llama doing in Southeast Ohio? Just away. I'm immediately thinking of his llama family, maybe somewhere in Peru. I'm thinking, how did they all end up here? And then my family all lives in Dominican Republic. So my whole life I was questioning, how did I get stuck in Ohio? So then I tried connecting the idea that a lot of families, migrant children, a lot of immigrants, just people that are having to move constantly, and that they just miss the home, whether that be their culture or their family. And so, like I said, I was always missing my Dominican family. So then I took Harmony the llama, based it off my life, his life, he's real. And then I touched on the subject of depression in that book, but also gratitude, and just been finding things to be grateful for, especially with this past year. I know a lot of people have been struggling, a lot of grief, a lot of loss. So this book incorporates a llama that travels around his farm in Ohio, and he comes to realize there is a lot of good things even just around me. So maybe one day, there's a line in here that talks about maybe one day he'll go and visit his llama family in Peru. Maybe one day I will retire in Dominican Republic. We'll see. But for now, it's finding the happiness that is right in front of me. And then the second book, Sob and the Sloth, this one is a little harder for me to write about because it talks about the subject of anxiety, something that a lot of us experience, something that I've had since I was a child. And so this one is breaking that stigma that I am proud. I feel like we're headed in the right direction, but it's still, mental health is still something that is kept a little bit on the hush side. So opening up that conversation, and both of these books touching on mental health, I want that to be something that we start talking about when we're children, and not something that we're waiting until our midlife crises to talk about. So both of these books are intended for families to enjoy and tell their children it's okay, not the end of the world, and things are going to get better. So I hope everybody enjoys these stories. They're special.
So I'm going to go back to Jill.
Okay.
And everyone, there's don't worry about it. I'm glad that you're back. So one thing I realized, and I sort of, people will not have read the book. So if you, in a sentence or two, maybe three, can just tell us what your book is about, and what is the sort of your favorite highlight? It can be a word, it can be a page, it can be a sentence, but just something that has meaning for you, that you really like in your book.
Well, my book is about the bandit who we adopted. He was found by a correction officer on his way to work, being mauled by a coyote or something. And the coyote dropped the bandit, and he was rescued. So my book is about, it's about a bandit finding a home, and that he's got a good home and he's safe. And now he's going to go on all these adventures and see all these farm animals. And my favorite picture in the book, let me show you my favorite picture. Give me just one moment.
No, that's fine. Everyone else can be thinking of theirs.
This is Bandit and his new safe home with Ruby.
Oh, I get it. Oh, I love that warm fire.
Yes.
That is a beautiful illustration.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. So Bandit's just a special puppy, and we're glad that he's here with us on the farm.
Wonderful. Thank you. Kathy.
Yes.
So just a couple sentences, what your book's about, and what is a highlight for you?
Okay. Well, my book's about this little possum, and he meets a porcupine, and he's intrigued with the porcupine, and he wants to be a porcupine. So he figures out a way to stick sticks on his back so he looks like a porcupine. But when the fox comes around, it's not such a good idea. I'm not going to give away everything because I want people to buy my book. But he decides that he's better off just being himself. The porcupine shows up again at the end after he's been through trying to act like a porcupine, and he's starting to say, I have an idea for how you could get quills. He said, no, I'm just better off being myself.
Right. I do love those drawings of the when he's trying to be a porcupine.
Oh, thanks.
Mark, over to you.
All right, I think we've got in my book, each page has a different flower on it.
Okay.
This particular one, it's about chrysanthemums. It says chrysanthemum. It's hard to say, but I love how they look. Grandma keeps them at her house in her breakfast nook. So that's pretty much one of my favorite pages.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Thank you. Cristina.
To sum up harmony, the llama, I would say the word that goes with harmony is gratitude. And I've actually started a gratitude journal, I think, for the first time in my life. So I am practicing what I'm preaching. And then this book, Sabana the Sloth, I would say one word to sum it up would be worthwhile. That life is worthwhile at the end of the day. And so this is my favorite spread because we have Lula right here. Her name means fearless. Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Yes, we can thank my mom for that. She, her name means warrior. So she is fearless. So I just love that she's running down to go help Sabana right here. Sabanita, he's going, ee! So that's a fantastic line. Just this ee, because that's sloths. That's, I guess, a noise that they make. And so it's just showing how scared he is, but I like to read it nice and slow. And then this page is just so fun because, of course, we had to incorporate the llama gear here, and then just love all the facial expressions that are going on here. I think that's this one's beautiful. Flipping up his eyeliid.
Lovely detail. That was beautiful, Mark. I'm definitely a flower lover, and I love identifying them as well. I wanted to ask you all about the process of writing. Do just a little survey. Mark, computer or pen and paper, or both? To write.
I'm actually a little different in that regard. The way I got into this, I found out a little later on in life that I'm dyslexic. So a lot of the books that I've written, I actually have written them in my head and gone through them. And it's not really until the book's done that I actually write it down I go with computer. So
great.
That's kind of my process is a little bit different. So
Kathy?
I usually do pen and paper to start with because I can get it out and I want to get it down while it's still fresh in my mind. And then I type it into the computer and kind of fine tune it some. But Gina's really has been good for me because the first version of this book was 1,500 words and we're only allowed to have 500 words. So I had to cut it down by thirds. So it was kind of painful, but in the end, it was better. I kept all the best parts and got rid of fluff, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. So Cristina, how about you? Computer or paper and pen?
I'm a little on the disorganized side, so it just depends what is next to me. But I would definitely say I start with a journal or even my notes in my phone. And I was telling an author the other day during one of my Instagram lives, kind of gave away a little secret, but that I have to be inspired. And what helps me so much is sitting at a children's library or walking through nature. And so let's give an example. I'll be walking through nature, got my phone, using it to take my pictures, but also if I see something or if I sit down and I'm by a creek or just see something beautiful, I'm immediately going to the notes on my phone. Then I transfer that to my journal. Eventually we get to computer. I'm old school like that.
How about you, Jill?
I'm always on the computer.
Yeah.
That's where it goes, on the computer.
Yeah. One other little survey, when you started, sort of thinking about this particular story that you wanted to write, we'll start with you, Kathy. Do you start with character or do you start with plot?
Actually, this one started with the title.
Oh.
It was the possum and the porcupine. Gina had me add Pudgy's name to it, but I have a whole list of Pudgy books that are all P with a P, ideas for future books.
Oh, great. Thank you. Mark?
I actually start with a word that turns into a hook, which turns into a rhyme, and off it goes.
Okay. That's great. Cristina?
Character development is huge for me. So, and I thrive off of people's good energy. So when I found Harmony and Donna, those people, I zone in and I start writing words to describe them and figure out where I want to go. It's like a screenplay. And then with Lula and Sabana, same thing. Lula, actually, at the time I was living in Georgia for grad school. So I passed a town named Lula, Georgia. I said, that's a wonderful name. Looked it up, it meant warrior. And then Sabana in Spanish means bedsheet. So I actually have my my Sabana Rosada that I would carry around. This makes an appearance in the book, but here is it in its glory. But that's the Sabina that I'm referring to. So I definitely
Your
start with
character.
Yes.
Okay. Terrific. Jill, character or plot?
I live my characters every day. So everything that I write about is stuff that I do every day on the farm. So it can be both. It can be the pigs one day, and the next time it could just be because we're putting up hay or something. So it could be both.
Yeah, great. What about basically my question is, do you test your stories out on children? Or is it in your own? So Jill, let's start with you.
I did. I might have a great niece who is 3. And so we had her grandma read my book to her, and she loved the pictures. And she sat still through most of it. So that was I thought that was a wonderful trial. So yeah, that was the only one we did though. Just my great niece.
Okay, Mark?
Absolutely. I've got some folks at work that have kids that range anywhere from 3 to 8. And I went ahead and did some mock-ups of the book, some drafts, and sent those home with them and got their feedback. So most definitely.
Great, great. Kathy?
Well, main reason I'm doing these books is for my grandkids. So of course I have my grandkids check them out. And I have to give a shout out to my granddaughter, Aria. She's a junior in high school, but she still likes to read my books. And she goes through, I had it professionally edited, but she went through it first. And her goal was to not have the editor find anything wrong. She's really good about saying, oh, Grandma, you can't say it that way because you just said it that way in the last paragraph.
Very good.
So she's been a big help for me. And I do want to, before I forget, it was interesting that you said you had an ant on every page, because I have a ladybug on every page. And that was for my granddaughter that had just been born. If she couldn't read story or understand the story, she could at least look for the ladybugs.
That is her part. Yes, I love that. And I would say when it comes to the children, getting them to read my stories, actually, when I wrote Harmony, I was a senior. Let's see. When I was starting to get this idea and really getting serious about this, it was my junior year of college. And senior year was when I actually wrote it. But junior year, when I started coming up with the ideas, I was taking a class at Ohio University called Writing Nonfiction for Children. And I had a wonderful professor named Julie Agnon. So she's a genius. So when I had written my book, I was going to her office. She was looking it over, giving me so many ideas. So I learned so much from that class. That was a dream. That was a class I've always wanted to take, even though I'm not so much in my nonfiction, but it opened those doors for me and the connections. And then I would say too, going to the teaching profession, I love it for so many reasons, but I'm also really excited with my future books is getting ideas from my students, listening to the conversations that they're having at school, and then also having them read the books, my future ones. And I have yet to show them these. Today, I think I confused them. I said, yeah, I just casually, I'm like, yes, I've got books that I need to talk about that were published under my name.
But one. You don't show them to little. So what age group is your book aimed at, Cristina?
Yes, I would say they're both. I believe in reading when they're in the womb, but I would say preschool. So let's go with 2 years of age up until I would say 8 or 9. Yes, but
Great.
This is something that I would read forever. I'm a little biased.
No, of course. Well, I mean, all picture books, when one's children and they come home, even when they're adults, there are certain books that they will go back to and certain books that they really want to share with their children or with other children that they know,
Yeah, I mean, I have my best friend, Leslie, she told me, Cristina, I think I have your book, Harmony, memorized at this point, because she keeps it on her bedside and she reads it all the time. So appreciate her.
So let's talk a little bit about you guys as authors. And although, I think, Cristina, you have, mentioned some of this, but Jill, let's start with you about the inspiration. Were there particular books that inspired you, or what really made you decide that you wanted to write a picture book and, in fact, a whole series?
I always liked James Herriot books. And when I was younger, I went to school to be a veterinarian. So I didn't get into vet school, but I've always loved animal books. And then my mother, she loved to write. She wrote poetry. And although she was never published, she instilled in me the thrill of writing, the adventure of reading. And so when we got banded is when I first started thinking about writing a book, because he was such a special dog. And like I said, we've rescued a lot of animals, but I wanted to bring that to children, to the love of animals, love of a farm, love of rescue, taking care of animals. So I think my mother is the reason I really wanted to write, because I know how much she loved it. And so and my mom's passed now, but she was always very proud of me, and she would be awesome proud of me now with that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mark, what were your inspirations and particular books that turned you on?
Well, my most favorite child's book is absolutely The Little Engine That Could.
Okay.
Yeah, one of my favorites. And then the next one that came up for me was called Porco Von Pop Button. I grew up playing hockey on the East Coast, had trouble in school, didn't know why at that point in time, but I really excelled on the ice. So it was one of those things where my confidence really was held, outside in the physical realm, much like a lot of rough and tumble boys. That was absolutely me. But the inspiration that I found these stories have kind of found me versus me pursuing them. It's really been interesting. But the inspiration of the ability to continue to do something. The Porco Von Pop Button is about a young man who goes to school. He's sent away to school, obesely overweight. And they decide at that school that they need a goalie for their hockey team. And they put him in the net because he fills the net. And it's at the end of the game, the ice melts. He's the only one left, and he scores the game-winning goal. And he goes on to continue to play. And he goes through. He loses a lot of weight, and then he takes on someone else towards his graduation time frame and mentors them. So, for me, the inspiration is really about getting kids into something that they can do for the rest of their lives. So, those are a couple of books that really inspired me.
Great. Cristina, what are the books that inspired you?
So it all starts with my family. I am so huge into my family, I think, because they are far away. So anytime that I got to visit them was so special to me. So from a young age, I was learning Spanish and English at the same time. So these books, they're all across the board when it comes to the subjects. But this is where I learned. So this to me would be a dream to make these kinds of books too. I mean, we've got these transparent pages that you can flip and look at that fruit go, right? And so you're learning Spanish words. And speaking of my bestie Leslie again, actually there was one time that we were at our local library in North Canton, Ohio, and our moms were at the library, and there was a book called Cocoa Ice by Diane Applebaum, I believe. And that book is so special to me because we have a girl from Santo Domingo in Dominican Republic, and then I believe the other girl's in Maine. Sorry if I'm getting the facts wrong, but the fact that they never meet in person, but the jobs that their dads have, they're interacting in that way. So, DR is providing cocoa and we're getting ice from North America. So that book, the moment, just the whole interaction of my mom talking with her mom and how special that was. Her mom saying, Sarah, that's my mom's name. You need to read this book with your children. And then just enjoying that book so much. And I've never forgotten about that one. And so inspiration comes from my family and just making them proud and really sweet stories like Cocoa Ice.
Right. Lovely. Kathy.
I don't have any one certain book from when I was little. My grandmother read to me. She babysat me when I was in kindergarten. I remember her reading to me, and she read this one about a little train that went from Kalamazoo to Timbuktu and back, and it went clickety clack, and there was something about her dentures that just made that clickety clack sound so perfect. So my love of books goes back, way back, but probably my biggest inspiration is from Laura Ingalls Wilder. She didn't start being a published author till she was 65. So all during my career of teaching, I didn't really have the time I needed to spend on the books, but I kept telling myself, you can wait as long as you're not 65 yet, there's still hope. So once I retired, then I had more time to spend on. And I have to say, when my son was little, he was in a book club. He got a book once a month, I think. And this one book came and it was so dumb. I thought, if somebody can get that book published, I should be able to get a book published. So,
yeah. Well, that's great. I do want to encourage those who are watching to put their questions into the Q&A, because we will leave a little bit of time, I think, at the end for any questions. I wondered, while we're, thinking about inspiration, many of the people who will be watching will be wanting to write books themselves. And, I wondered if there was something that you, as an author, would like to share with either readers, something about the writing or about this particular book, that you would like to share with readers or people who are at the festival today. So why don't we go back to you, Kathy?
I would say, just if you like to write, just write, keep writing. Even if nobody ever reads it, still write it down. And I'm lucky enough that I have some journals and diaries from my great grandparents. And it's just so cool to read all those. So even if nobody reads it till 3 generations from now, write it down. Somebody will like it somewhere.
Right. Yeah, they say if you want to take yourself seriously as a writer, you should write every day. So yeah, it's probably good advice. Mark.
Well, that's actually what I was going to say. Find your routine and start. Much like Kathy said, just start. I have a thing called the red line syndrome. When you're banging it out on the computer, don't get caught by the red lines. Don't slow down too much for spelling. I know that for me, when my spelling's atrocious. So if I were to stop every time I misspelled something, I'd never get anything done. And I've carved out that little time in the morning where just the dogs and I are up. And that's just a head clearing time, and I just go. But every day, that's what I would say.
Right. So it's a pretty disciplined approach. Cristina.
I will have to say, have fun with it. Have so much fun. Don't get so focused on the end goal. Easy for me to say, but truly enjoy. For example, for me, it would be those characters, developing those characters. Enjoy the words that you're writing down. Don't be hard on yourself. If you're having writer's block, come back to it later. Go take a walk. So just enjoying every moment of it. And I always get asked, oh, what's so special about being the author? And it's finally when you get to the end there, and then people are reading it and they're critiquing it, whether it's good or bad, but just all of it is just so enjoyable for me. And then to even look back, let's say a week ago, and say, oh, look what I had last week. Or even my mom and I, we laughed at how she started drawing Sabana and Lula. And we're like, what in the world? That's what we were thinking. So it's just so much more. It's just so fun to look back. I hate to use the word journey. That's so cliche, but enjoy the process. Enjoy the adventure of it. It's not going to be smooth. So enjoy it.
Right. And of course, as you say, it is a process and there's a lot of editing and you should totally be into all of it. Jill.
I would say, one, don't lose your voice. Be sure to stay true to who you are, and don't give up. You know, you might not be able to find a publisher right away, but don't give up and don't get discouraged, because that's just kind of how the business is. And hopefully they'll be successful.
For sure. I mean, you're right. I mean, many of the greatest writers, it took a while for them to come to the book that they were really destined to write. And also, as you say, to connect with the right editor, the right publisher. And you all have obviously had a great experience with Gina, and in all kinds of ways, from the beginning, you know, from the manuscript and the proposal and right to the finished book, which is what we're celebrating today. So I see that there are some questions. And the first question is from Chuck Steinbauer, and he says, how did Cristina get to Ohio? Cristina.
I ask myself this every day. Who was the name of this person, so I can say hello to them? Was it Chuck? Did I hear that?
Yeah, it
correctly?
is. It's
Chuck. Okay. Hi, Chuck. Thank you for asking that question. Yeah, like I said, I ask this all the time. No, but it's a classic love story at the time. My dad's parents are from Dominican Republic and all his family lives there. And my mom grew up there and all her family lives there. So my dad grew up in Canton, Ohio. And then one time when he went to go visit his family, he saw my mom playing the piano. He says it was the Godfather, Michael, the lightning bolt that hit him, her not so much, but that's what he refers to. So yes, love.
So love
Brought us up here. But also my dad's dad, my Lelo, he was a doctor for the military. So that's how he came over here and then started his family here. So they were a military family at first.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So the second question is about research. Joy asks, did you do any research before deciding on a subject so as not to duplicate other books? Mark, why don't you tell us, did you do research to decide, was there a need for this particular book, or?
Actually, for Flowers by Faye, I didn't do any research. I did some light research. I didn't dig real deep for that particular book, only because it was something that to me just flowed. And if there were other books out there that educated children about flowers, then that's great. I do have another book. It's called Hands Over Time, and that was featured at an Ohioana a couple of years ago. And that one's a compilation of short stories, but for that particular book, I did. Because some of them are, it's a book based on the experience of your hands, whether it's painting, dialing a phone, something. There's a whole bunch of different, there's 30 short stories. But some are based on historical characters. So as I wrote those short stories, I did quite a bit of research from a historical perspective, just to ensure I got everything right.
Okay, thanks. Jill.
Gina and I both did research before we did the Bandit book to make sure there wasn't another Bandit book similar to this one. But then for the content of my books, I don't really do research because, as I said previously, I live these stories. So. But we did research to make sure we weren't duplicating somebody else's book.
Right. Okay. Kathy?
No, I was writing them for my grandkids, so I really didn't care if there were other books similar. Gina did, first time I met with her, we did look to see if there were any other pudgy possums, so I know the name was okay. The most research I did was just reading about possums and their lifestyle and things like that, so I wouldn't get too far off of reality.
Right, yeah. Cristina.
For the first book, Harmony, I was at Ohio University my senior year, and we were putting together Southeast Ohio magazine. So one of the stories that I was publishing was a feature on Donna and her llama farm. So I did a lot of research there, a lot of questions with her. So I learned all about her She's the llama queen, truly. Her and her husband are amazing. So that's a whole nother story, but I got a lot of research from that. And then I got really interested in my llamas. And then when it came to Sabina the sloth, I did a lot of research on sloths, and I think they sleep 14 hours a day. Again, sorry if I'm getting the facts wrong, but I fell in love with both the llama and the sloth, because if anyone asks me, I want to at least give them some good information. But again, I think all these authors have mentioned is I don't get too caught up on that either, especially since my books are fiction. But just to add here as well, when it came to research for Sabina the sloth, I looked up, this page talks about the fears that Sabina has. So he's afraid of heights and afraid of noises and afraid of water. So those are 3 common fears that children have. So just little research like that. And both of my books, these creatures are from Peru. So I've done a lot of research on Peru and learned a lot about it.
Actually, you know, what is interesting to me, just for the person asking the question, that, you know, very often masses of the research is done by the illustrator. The illustrators, even if the book is fanciful or fiction, it is the illustrator who sort of takes on the responsibility of not getting anything wrong. And I've always been amazed by how meticulous the sort of invisible, that's a very invisible part of the illustration process, that they're sure to, you know, get the flowers or the animals and everything right, just as you did your research, Kathy. So there's one more question, and this person wants to know how to submit a manuscript to Monday Creek. And Gina is not here, but would one of you like to tell us, why don't you very quickly tell us how you went about submitting? Would you begin, Jill? Just tell us how you went about submitting to Gina at Monday Creek.
Well, I contacted Gina because I knew she was an author, and I wanted to talk to her about her experiences with publishers. And she, at that time, told me that she had started her own publishing company. Right. So through her, I went ahead and talked to her about, could I submit mine to her, when I was actually just trying to reach to her to see if I could find a publisher to go to. So I was fortunate to know Gina as a writer, author, before she was a publisher. And so that's how I got to know Gina. And so what I would suggest is just someone contacting, she has a website, she has a Facebook site, just to contact her, send her a message, and see about getting a meeting with her.
Yeah, I was just looking up the address, but I know that they do have a very full website. Mark, what was your experience?
Well, mine was fairly similar. Gina just published 3 books about a very well-known large animal vet here in the area called Pete Smith. And Pete's son, Pat, is one of my neighbors. So Pat said, we're having this book launch over at the clinic. I'd love for you to come over. I know that I've written some songs that have been published as well. And Pat and I had talked about that. And he goes, why don't you come over? You can talk to Gina. Gina McKnight, she wrote the book for us. And be nice for an introduction. So I went over and chatted with Gina, and she invited me to come up to her infamous office in the barn, which is just beautiful. And we just started to talk about publishing. So that's how I got into it. But it also helped when I gave her my manuscript. I stuck $100 bill there in the back. Just kidding. That's how Gina and I got started.
Kathy.
I have to give a shout out to White's Mill here in Athens.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had all of the Pete Smith books out. And so I was looking at those, and I looked to see who published them. And several times I'd go in and think, maybe I should try and contact them. So I did try to contact Gina, and she set up a meeting, and I took like almost everything I'd ever written for her to look through. I'm surprised she wasn't overwhelmed, but anyhow, she looked through everything I brought her, and she picked out Pudgy and the porcupine to start
Terrific.
with. So it was
So-
wonderful. So thank you so much, White's Mill.
Yeah, they have a beautiful selection of books. Very quickly, Cristina, how did you make contact with Monday Creek?
So Kathy, I'll bounce off of you real quick. Is the fact when you're saying, oh, I don't know how she wasn't overwhelmed, is that I think that's a true testament to Gina's character, is how authentic she is. So shout out to Gina. But mine started with, I mentioned her earlier, the OU professor who I took the nonfiction writing for children. I kept bugging her, going to her office hours and saying, I have to make this happen by the time I graduate. And she said, oh, one of my students named Caitlin Coolidge, she's actually working through a publishing company here outside Athens. So I met with Caitlin at coffee and Court Street Coffee, very special place. And so shout out to Caitlin. She's also dedicated to my book because her and her mom were wonderful people throughout that whole process. And Caitlin was great and said, this is Gina's email, shoot her an email. And it went from there. So that's why I encourage all of you to go to that Monday Creek publishing website and give it a try. And if it doesn't work out, go somewhere else, because it will happen. You keep going, I promise.
There is a contact button on their website, and the physical address is PO Box 399, Bucktel, Ohio, which is BUCHTEL 45716. So I think our time is up. And I want to thank you all so much for being here at the Ohioana Book Festival. It's 15 years. It's wonderful. And I want to encourage everybody who is at the festival and who has watched this panel. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you'll go to bookloft.com. And no way to express it in enthusiasm like purchasing an author's book. So I hope that you enjoy these books, read them with your kids or friends. And thanks again, everyone. It was a real pleasure getting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to those who watched.
Thank
We're gonna
you.
watch.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.